I never imagined that one phone call would destroy everything I believed about my family. My name is Auntie Rose. I'm 72 years old, a retired school teacher from Vermont. And until that day, I truly believed my three children loved me. I was wrong. It all started after I returned from a 3-week recovery stay at a rehabilitation center following hip surgery. The nurses had taken wonderful care of me, and I couldn't wait to get back home. But when the taxi pulled into my driveway, something felt wrong. The curtains were gone. The flowers I'd planted with my late husband had been ripped from the yard. Even worse, the front door locks had been changed. I stood there, confused, holding my suitcase while my own house looked like it belonged to strangers. I knocked. A young couple I'd never seen before opened the door. "Can we help you?" the man asked politely. I stared at him. "I'm sorry. This is my house." He frowned. "No, ma'am. We bought this place 2 weeks ago." I felt my knees weaken. Bought? That couldn't be possible. My hands began to shake as I searched my purse for my property papers, convinced this had to be some terrible misunderstanding. Then the woman looked at me with sympathy. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "We were told the previous owner passed away." Passed away? I couldn't breathe. Someone had told the world that I was dead. Before I could even process those words, my phone rang. It was my oldest friend, Margaret. The moment I answered, she burst into tears. "Rose, where have you been? We've all been mourning you." "What are you talking about?" There was a long silence. Then she whispered words that still haunt me to this day. "Rose, your funeral is tomorrow morning." My heart stopped. My funeral? Who could possibly arrange a funeral for someone who was still alive? As I stood on the sidewalk staring at the home my husband and I had built together, only one terrifying question echoed through my mind. If my own children had convinced everyone I was dead, what else had they stolen while I was gone? I stood frozen on the sidewalk, my suitcase still beside me. Tomorrow. My own funeral was tomorrow. Margaret picked me up 20 minutes later. The moment I got into her car, she wrapped her arms around me and sobbed like she'd seen a ghost. "I still can't believe you're alive," she whispered. "Neither can I." As we drove away, she explained everything. 3 weeks earlier, my oldest son, Daniel, had called every relative, every neighbor, and every church member. He claimed I had suffered a sudden stroke while recovering from surgery. According to him, I had died peacefully before anyone could say goodbye. The funeral had been planned quickly because, he said, Mom always wanted a simple service. Simple? Nothing about this felt simple. "What about the hospital?" I asked. "What death certificate did they show?" Margaret looked away. "They told everyone the paperwork was being handled privately." That was the moment I realized this wasn't panic. It was a plan, a carefully organized lie. Then Margaret handed me a folded newspaper she'd brought from her purse. My hands trembled as I opened it. There it was, my photograph, smiling beside my late husband. Above it were the words, "In loving memory of Rose Carter, beloved mother, grandmother, friend." I couldn't read another word. The obituary described me in the past tense. It thanked my children for their loving care. It invited everyone to attend my funeral. And at the bottom, instead of asking people to send flowers, it requested donations to a family memorial fund managed by my son Daniel. I looked at Margaret. "Did people donate?" She nodded slowly. "Hundreds of them." A sickness settled deep inside my chest. They weren't just stealing my home, they were stealing my life, my memories, my friends, even my reputation. Then Margaret said something that chilled me to the bone. "Rose, there's something else." I looked at her. "The day after they announced your death, your children emptied your safety deposit box." Silence filled the car. Inside that box were my husband's military medals, our wedding rings, family photographs, and the original copy of my will. For the first time in my life, I wasn't heartbroken. I was angry, very angry. I wiped away my tears, looked straight ahead, and made a promise to myself. If my children wanted the world to believe I was dead, then tomorrow they were about to witness the biggest shock of their lives. That night I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my late husband smiling at me. We had spent 43 years building a life together. We worked overtime, skipped vacations, and sacrificed everything so our children would never struggle the way we had. And now, they had erased me as if I had never existed. By sunrise, my tears were gone. All that remained was determination. Margaret insisted on coming with me, but I asked her for one favor instead. Don't tell anyone I'm alive. She looked surprised. You want them to believe the lie? For just one more day. If my children were willing to stage my funeral, then they deserved to face the truth in front of everyone they had deceived. At 10 o'clock that morning, I stood outside the small church where my funeral service was being held. Cars filled the parking lot. People dressed in black walked quietly toward the entrance. Some carried flowers. Others wiped tears from their eyes. They had come to mourn a woman who was standing only a few feet away. I pulled my coat tighter and slowly walked toward the doors. From outside, I could hear my oldest son speaking. His voice sounded calm, even emotional. My mother was the most loving woman I've ever known, he said. The congregation nodded. Some people cried. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The same son who had declared me dead was now pretending to honor my memory. Then I heard my daughter, Emily. We'll always cherish the sacrifices Mom made for us. Sacrifices? They had already sold my home. They had emptied my safety deposit box. They had collected donations in my name. And now they were collecting sympathy. The pastor stepped toward the podium. Before we conclude today's service, Daniel has asked to say a few final words. Daniel took a deep breath and looked toward the closed casket at the front of the church. I know my mother would want us to stay strong, he said, fighting back fake tears. She always believed family comes first. That was the moment I reached for the church door. My hand rested on the handle. Inside, no one had any idea what was about to happen. The room was silent. Daniel opened his mouth to finish his speech, and I slowly pushed the door open. The heavy wooden doors creaked open. Every head in the church turned toward me. For a heartbeat. No one moved. No one breathed. A woman in the front row screamed. Someone dropped a bouquet of white roses onto the floor. The pastor stepped back, his Bible slipping from his hands. Daniel's face turned ghostly white. Emily covered her mouth in horror. My youngest son, Michael, looked as though he might faint. I slowly walked down the center aisle, my footsteps echoing through the silent church. Every pair of eyes followed me. I stopped beside my own casket. Then I looked directly at my children. I hope I'm not late for my own funeral. The silence shattered. Whispers spread through the room like wildfire. She's alive. How is this possible? I thought she died. Daniel rushed toward me. Mom, please, we can explain. I took one step back. No, Daniel. For weeks I listened to your lies. Today, everyone else gets to hear the truth. I turned toward the congregation. My children told you I was dead. They sold my home. They emptied my safety deposit box. They accepted your donations. And they planned this funeral while I was recovering from surgery. Gasps filled the church. Several people stared at my children in disbelief. The pastor looked directly at Daniel. Is this true? No one answered, because they couldn't. Just then, two police officers walked through the church doors. Margaret had quietly contacted the authorities after helping me gather every document proving I was alive and still owned my property. One officer approached my children. We need to ask you several questions regarding fraud, identity theft, and the illegal sale of property. Daniel's shoulders collapsed. Emily burst into tears. Michael couldn't even look at me. As they were escorted outside, Daniel turned one last time. I'm sorry, Mom. For years, I dreamed of hearing those words, but now they meant nothing. Some wounds are simply too deep. Months later, the court ruled that the sale of my home had been fraudulent. The buyers received their money back through the legal process, and ownership of my house was restored to me. The memorial fund was shut down, and every donation was returned to the people who had given in good faith. I placed my husband's wedding ring and military medals back into a new safety deposit box. This time, only I had the key. People often ask me whether I ever forgave my children. The truth is, forgiveness and trust are not the same thing. I chose to let go of my anger because I refused to let bitterness control the rest of my life. But trust must be earned, and once it's buried, sometimes it never comes back. If this story touched your heart, remind yourself of one thing: love your family, but never ignore the warning signs when someone values your possessions more than your presence. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy emotional family stories with unforgettable twists, please subscribe to the channel, like this video,